Menahot Daf Ayin Hey Amud Aleph 11 lines from the bottom Mishnah. Call him Menahot Nasuf Beklita or Not Petita. All korbanot minhot that was made in the vessel has to be broken into pieces. We'll explain what that is soon. Ma'ut Hemai, what is that excluding? Only the vessel. These two things that do not have they're not broken. Term Patot otah pitim mincha. Break it into pieces. It's mincha. L'rabot kol minachot b'pticha. Every mincha needs it. Yachol shani min rabbi avshtei lachem lachim. I think even these two. The Pasuk says otah it excludes the other two. The Gemara says v'yat sakta shem mincha. L'rabot kol minachot l'zikah. All of them are chayav in pouring. Yachol shani af mincha hamafa. Even maybe the baked oven baked mincha also needs to be poured oil. Tamud mar aleihin shemin only on it. That excludes the oven because you can't put that inside. Oti the halal also could have excluded the halal of Medavin, but Oti the Rakim not excluded Rikikin. The Gemara says it, which excludes on it one for halal, one for Rikikin. Versus Ma'ad, how do you learn that it excludes oven? Emel Simin Hat Konim, which excluding something else like the Menhat Konim. This is Maraba. Ezu Devar Sharich Shnei Me'utim. What type of korban needs two separate exclusions? Havimer Zoom and Had Ma'afed. I need the oven baked. Minha, which has two forms, half and hikin, therefore we need two separate exclusions. New Mishnah, Minhat Israel. Kofel Hadashnami, he folds the minha bread into, Ushnaim Rabba, then two into four, Mavdil, then he cuts it into four quarters. Minhat Kohanim, Kofel Hadashnami, 1 to 2, Shem Rabba, 2 to 4, then Mavdil, we don't cut it. Minhat Kohanim Mashiach, Leah, Mikapalan, Minha, the Kohen Gadol, you don't fold it at all. Rabbi Shimon says no. Menhat Kohanim, Menhat Kohanim Mashiach, and Behem B'tita, the Kohanim and the Kohen Gadol not broken. Because there's no Kmitza. V'chol she'en behen kmitza, and behen b'tzitzah, v'kulan potchim b'zitim. That any mincha that doesn't have kmitza does not break it broken. And when anything is broken, it has to be in the size of at least a fikizayit. Number 9, patot, when you break it, yachol sh'nai, maybe you think only broken into two pieces. Tamamar, what it also says, pitim, pieces. Pitim, I mentioned pieces, yachol yazen pirutim, we should make it into crumbs. Tamamar, ota, it. Ota pitim, it into pieces, v'ol pita pitim, now the pieces into pieces. Hakis as possible, and has Yisrael, al kofel al-Hashem. Hashem, by Israel's korban ha gets 1 to 2 to 4. Magdil didn't cut it. And hot konim v'konim Mashiach, etc. Have my kapla, then you fold it. Okay. V'hanan tanan lahem kapla, but we not Mishnah that you don't fold it at all. The Gemara says in a makabla b'av ben kapla l'shnayim. The Kohen Gadol and the Kohen and ha you don't fold into four, but you don't fold into two. Rabbi Shimon Omer min hat kohanim u'min hat kohen Mashiach en behem b'tizah. Rabbi Shimon holds minha v'kohen and the Kohen Gadol are not broken. Amar Yosef, hi habitza. Regarding eating the habitza, habitza is a type of dish with pieces of bread. Think of like croutons. The eat bapirud is a kazayit. They have pieces of a kazayit inside of a bread. Mevarachin alei amotin arz make hamotzi. Later the bakirud inside it's not the size of a kazayit. Mevarachin alei abaramzrat doesn't make mizrat. The verse about I don't know. It's from Tani, but it says Hema. I could even have Bishlam. Someone's bringing a korban menachan. Yerushalayim Omer Berich Shechianu Kimanu. It says Shechianu. Nislan Nochaim when he takes to eat it. Mevarach when seminar says hamotzi. Udan Amishna says Biklam Pitim Kazayit. You have to make it into kazayit. We see that kazayit makes you hamotzi. My bad, just 1 second. Utana Derbe Ishmael Damar, according to it says, you crush the menachot now into small pieces, but you make it so fine, you may turn it practically into flour. You don't say if you want to say that's the case, it says, you should gather bits and pieces of the bread until it's a gazait. Im hametz uvs hametz, arush karet, it's chayav karet on Pesach. Im matzah uvs hamatzah, hadayim yisabel in techol Pesach, you say your mitzvah Pesach on it. So we see that pieces of bread is considered bread even if it doesn't kazait. So it should be said hamotzi. The Gemara says when you're forming the pieces of bread into a single dough of a kazait. Yeah, that's the case. I tend to lab. We said on that. The rest they eat it a certain amount of time. It's 1 piece of dough. Should not be eating the pieces. It should be eating it. 1 piece. The Gemara says case. Came from 1 large piece of bread. And since that big bread is substantial, therefore pieces from it also substantial. What's the halacha regarding the chavisa? Rosh Hashanah says if you put it in like kazait, even pieces of bread no kazait, you still have motzi. Baba says as long as it still looks like bread. Okay, new Mishnah Ayin Vav Amud Aleph. Kol menachot shlosh me'ot shiva. All menacha needs to be rubbed 300 times. V'hamesh me'ot ba'aitan has to be pounded 500 times. Shifa be'aita bechitin. When you're rubbing and pounding, it applies to hitting the wheat. Rabbi Yosef says no be'epasek in the dough. كل Menahot بعد عسرة Menahot, he brought it groups of 10 of breads, 10 bread at a time. Hold. ويلך مبرين وحبيتك when the dog said for the Lachaprim, the Chavitin the Gadol, שהם בעוד 2 עשרה bread brought us 12. دير بيتا سكر بيتا دير بيتا شمال maybe says كلهم بعود 12 all of them are in 12 حوت مع على تورات نزرو سفر the bread to the النازير عشان بعود عسر they're brought in 10. 10 about says شافة had you rub once بعد shine and you pound twice شاف shine you prep twice بعد شلوش you hit 3 times you keep on doing that 1 to 2 to 3 to 2 to 3 3 to 5 etc 3 to 4 and then that's how you get the 3 to 500. Yeah, I'm two hard. Do you go back when you're rolling it back and forth in your hand? Is that considered one? Or did Madam two get to the three? If you're rolling it back and forth, it's considered two. My was al khad versus teko. Shiva ba'ita bi'chitin. The rather than pounding it by the wheat. The Muslim Mary says no. B'batzek the dough. Yibai the b'batzek b'lu b'chitin. Do you mean dough and not wheat, or is the af b'batzek? Maybe mean dough and wheat. That's my approved. Tanya shiva b'chitin b'chitin. Muslim Mary shiva ba'ita b'batzek. Only the dough, not wheat. Next part of the Mishnah. Komer Chod Ba'al Shtei Mitzrayim, you said all of them are 12. 10, and some say, and then except for the Lechem Panim and Chavitin are 12. Lechem Panim Ba'id Ktiveh. Regarding the Lechem Panim, says that's to be 12. Chavitin going to go, Chavitin Atya Huka, Huka Lechem Panim, Exer Shara from word Lechem Panim, from the word Huka teaches you 12. Komer Chod, throughout Eser, all the Menachot are groups of 10. Yan Haynos from, Gamar Melachmit Exer Shara of the Zabrets. Rather than Asida, because there's tens of breads, so it's over here tens of groups of 10. The Lechem Panim wants to Exer Shava of the word. Menachem Panim. Well, then Jim said Alpha conscious learn 12 and 12. Versus Mistera Lachit Tav, then it makes more sense to compare it and learn it from Lechem of the bread of the Tazah. Shekin, because the comparison, Yahid, they brought by a person. They donated Shemin, they use oil, they've sellen and become pasul and leaving overnight. And Shalom Shabbat, you also can't bring and Shabbat, but the Shalom B'Zman, you also can't bring Wadhameh. All these things do not apply to the Chavitin. Actually, there's other things to compare it to. The Lechem Panim, Shekin, because hectares they're both kadosh. Levana, they require levana. Matzah, they bring the matzah. The item, and you have to bring it for the sake of itself, not as an accompanying like the todah. The bread is brought with the korban. That's okay, fine. And also not only that, but the todah breads have more ways to learn it more than the Lechem Panim. If you want to see something that learned through Exer Shava can then be learning through a Binyan Av, which means you learn Exer Shava, one word here, one word there, therefore I learn that, then you could build on that through a Binyan Av, which means you're learning this general category for other places. And therefore, you should learn the halacha of other Menachot from the Chavitin of a Kohen Gadol. Mala Halan, Shtem, like over there is 12. Av conscious, says over here is 12. Okay. And therefore, Mistaber the Mahmet Tahanef still makes more sense to learn from the Tzah. Shekin, because they have following comparisons. Hediot, regular person. Shinadev can donate it. Hasain, they're not brought in halves. Lefigol, they're not chayav and pigol. Shalav Shabbat, they're not brought from Shabbat. Vashat Madar chayav Tva. Not brought Watmei. Adar Rabbeinu, Mahavite Kohen Gadol, Hadam, should learn from Mahavitin. Shekin, because Yisrael, they have both of Yisrael. They must use a Kli and Petantash. Hegdesh, they're both Kadosh. Luvana, they have Luvana. Matzah, they Matzah. The Aitzim is brought for itself, not for anything else. Hagasha, you bring it to the Mizbeach. The Ishim, and you put on the Mizbeach to burn. And this way is more comparison to the Havitin. Mar says, Hadiot and Hidot, still. Even though there's more ways to learn from, the fact that these two Korbanot are the Todah and the Shtei Lechem are brought by a regular person, that's why it's more significant to learn from. Okay. The Rebbe says, Kulan Ba'ot Shem Mitzvah, you all bring the 12 breads at a time except for the Todah. My customer, why? If you don't say that you could do Gzer Shava to be enough, at least you should learn from Gadol. Because you have more ways to learn from. You can't do that. At least he could still learn from the Lechem Panim. And how can you do it if there's more comparisons? Not that way. The Gemara says because they're both kadosh, and that would be good enough to compare it.